Hello and what's up, RSC Pokemon Challenges fam? How you guys doing? Today we are back. It is the wrap-up episode for the Roxanne Minimum Battle series. We're going to be going through a bunch of challengers today just to redo a bunch of Pokemon that you guys have suggested should have been done a second time. But on top of that, we've also got 5 new member picks. So let's just break down how this is actually going to go. Down in that fail column, you're going to see a bunch of Pokemon that have a little triangle mark on them. I know it might be kind of hard to see, but the overlay wasn't working nicely with me putting them into today's challengers. But we will be coming in with Paris, Persian, Golem, Articuno, Burret, Slowking, Mantine, Wingull, Sharpedo, Duskull, Snorunt, Huntail, and Shelgon. And all of these Pokemon are going to get a second chance on the basis that they got pretty close to getting through the first time. Additionally, the Pokemon Kecleon and Dragonair got pretty close to getting through legitimately, but they've been picked up by channel members. So I'll be testing them on their normal movesets as well. But if they fail, we will be giving them access to stronger moves as channel member Pokemon just to see if that makes a difference in this section of the game. But the goal is simple, just to retry some of the Pokemon that got really close but didn't quite get through to see if maybe we can get some of them through in this second attempt. Then at the end of this episode, I'll be going through a bunch of wrap-up and data about what we've encountered so far. We're going to be ranking the typings based on their performance at the end of this one, so stick around for that because there will be a tier list of every single typing and how it actually performed on the whole in this section. So without further ado, let's get into this, and I'm going to lead off with Paris, a Pokemon that got incredibly close to getting through, but wasn't quite able to get it to go on the first attempt. Let's see how it goes now. So of course our Paris picks up right here in front of Roxanne, and we had taught it Bullet Seed to go together with Stun Spore and Scratch, and I just wasn't quite getting the ranges with Bullet Seed that I would need to get through. However, this could be a situation where Effect Spore, which we didn't get a lot of activations from previously, might come into play, as well as the fact that perhaps the Bullet Seed just deals enough damage with, maybe a 4 or 5 hitter in the right situations to allow us to get the victory. So I'm going to test this a little bit more. I'm going to try to go back to the Oranberry with this Pokemon just to see if that makes a difference. So back to Roxanne with our Paris. Let's just review how things were going. Of course, on the first Geodude, we go Bullet Seed, but we're slower than that Pokemon. That is why we needed the Quick Claw. So let me just make sure that I go back to that. The low speed of Paris was a major factor here. So from the looks of things, we need a Quick Claw activation on the first Geodude. We can then knock that one out. The second Geodude is slower than the first Geodude, so this one is actually much easier to get through. It takes a 3-hitter, usually it looks like, and if we don't get it, we simply get Rock Tombed and wrecked. So this one really comes down to getting those Quick Claw activations on the first Geodude, and then on the second Geodude getting a really good range, at least a 3-hitter. It's more than 50% likely to get a 3-hit from the Bullet Seed, so you should get it most of the time, but it still is a little bit luck-based. Then we make it to Nose Pass, and the whole thing with Nose Pass is that we are slower, so it's not going to go Rock Tomb unless it can get a 1-hit KO on us, but of course it simply can. And we will need a massive Bullet Seed there if we're actually going to get through this one. And so it was basically on this basis that I gave up on this Pokemon. The fact that we weren't really getting the chance to do that much because we were simply getting knocked out too quickly due to our weakness to the Rock type, and you're relying on multiple Quick Claw activations in order to get the job done. Still, eventually, I think we will get a run where we get the Quick Claws that we need, and we can at least see again how we do on that Nose Pass and what kind of range we would need to get through. We should also keep in mind that Rock Tomb can miss 20% of the time, so it's not like it's a guaranteed 1-hit KO on us. It's just a little bit more likely that we get KO'd when we get to the Nose Pass here. This time Nose Pass randomly goes Harden, and we can see that the 2-hitter from Bullet Seed did that much. Bullet Seed does about 5 damage per hit. So we would need a Rock Tomb miss and some Quick Claws, and we would need multiple really good hits from this one in order to actually get through. So I'm going to give it a good go here, but there's a very high likelihood as I just play through this sped up multiple times that we still end up failing this Pokemon unless I can get the luck I need pretty quickly. This time we do get the Rock 2 miss at least, and we got a 4-hitter that took it down into Oranberry range, only for us to get wrecked immediately after that. The other thing to remember here, of course, is that because of the way that this fight works out, we'll always be getting to the Nose Pass with it still having 2 potions in reserve as well. So it's not just the Oranberry that we have to overcome, it's that 50 points of healing on the final Nose Pass that makes this basically impossible. Like, maybe if we got crazy critical hit luck with multiple hits from the Bullet Seed critting there, we might be able to get through in that sort of situation, but that is asking for an awful lot of luck on top of the fact that we already have to get a Quick Claw activation at the start of the fight. And it's on that basis that here, as I've done 50 more attempts with this Paris, I can basically say this Pokemon still does not get through. Like I said, not 100% impossible. I'm sure if you sat here and you grinded forever, you could get it to go. I'm just saying that it's not practical by any stretch of the imagination. You would have to gain more levels until you could at least survive a Rock Tomb from the Nose Pass in order to make this one reasonable, and it's on that basis that this Pokemon remains in the fail column. So with that, we're going to move on to Persian, another Pokemon that got fairly close to getting through. It had access to Bite and Growl, and it has decent speed. The problem is it is going to take a lot of Rock Tombs, so we have to see if maybe between Growl and Bite we can find some way through this. We're just going to have to see if it can work out or not with some extra attempts right here, but let's just find out if it's possible to get through this one. So first things first, against the Geodudes, we're going to Bite. We could get flinches here. We see Rock Throw did 12 damage to us, so we would be 3-hit KO'd here. We get a nice flinch and then a nice crit that forces her to use the potion at least on the first Geodude. And we are getting through that Pokemon with only 1 hit taken. We level up to level 9 right here. We're still going to be faster than this next Geodude. It misses a Rock Tomb, which is pretty nice. It hits the next one, taking us to 7 HP. We're going to have to use our Oranberry right there. We get a nice flinch as she goes for the potion, but we're going to need a lot of luck just to get to the Nose Pass here. When we get to the Nose Pass, we are now slower thanks to the Rock Tombs, but we also have like no HP remaining, so we simply get tackled and we lose. Now we can test this with some Growls just to see, but I still think the best strategy against the Geodudes is just to Bite and hope for multiple flinches on these Pokemon, giving us the chance to maybe get through without taking as much damage. It's going to be insanely luck-based to get it to go, but I am going to sit here and test it because using the Growl on these Pokemon isn't going to lower their attack that much. We're still going to be taking pretty significant damage. Like if we test it right here, a Growl on the Geodude will turn the Rock Tomb into 8 damage as opposed to 12 damage. Yes, that does make us more survivable, but we're still going to take an awful lot of turns to knock him out, and she still has the potions behind. So I just think it has to be crazy flinch luck to get us through to the Nose Pass on kind of decent health, maybe with the Geodudes occasionally using a random defense curl in order to allow us to get there. This time we do manage to get to the Nose Pass. We're still faster, but we've got 23 HP and we've got the Oranberry on. I think this is the spot to go for the Growls, trying to reduce the damage that we take. We'll have to heal with the Oranberry right here as we're now going to be slower than the Nose Pass. But now I think this comes down to lowering its attack stat as much as possible and hopefully being able to outdamage it with our bites. Once we've gotten its attack stat down fairly low, I'm going to just start biting here and we're just going to pray that we can outlast. We got a crit there, but we might have been able to get through without that crit. So I'm going to have to try this quite a few more times just to see. This time we're back to the Nose Pass on fairly decent HP. We're going for all of the Growls here to make its damage as low as possible as it's just spamming Harden, but obviously that doesn't affect Bite at all. And now we're just going to try to Bite and see if we can manage to get through this Pokemon as it tackles me. It's doing 2 damage per hit with the tackle. We forced the Oranberry right there. We didn't have our Oranberry on this time when we got to the Nose Pass, and it Rock Tombs me down when we had it all the way down to 1 HP remaining. That was incredibly close, but we just didn't quite get the range to get the job done. If we get another run like the previous one where we actually have the Oran Berry still on there, this does appear to be possible, and it depends very much on what the Geodudes do. We have to take only 1 hit from the 2 Geodudes before the Nose Pass if we're going to get that to go. We can take 2 hits from them if we're going to get there without the Oran Berry. Obviously, this is possible with flinches. It's just very unlikely. We have to get some mixture of defense curls, flinches, and misses from moves like Rock Tomb in order to get this to work out. But it does look much closer than that Paris on the basis that we are at least getting there and being able to survive against the final Nose Pass. And who knows, maybe I need to go for fewer growls at that point. Maybe it's just a matter of too much setup there, and we're better off just getting it down to doing like 3 damage per hit and then going into the bites and we can get the better range. I just don't get an awful lot of opportunities to get to the final Nose Pass, and that's what affects this strategy there a little bit. So this time when we get to the Nose Pass, again, we don't have the Oran Berry on anymore. I'm going to try to use 4 growls and then go in for the attack and just see if that allows me to get through. That will leave it using Harden still maybe 1 or 2 more times. We're taking 3 damage per hit this time, and the problem is it just gets us to Rock Tomb too quickly, so we do not get through on that attempt. So when we get to the Nose Pass, it does seem to be the best decision to just use a bunch of growls here. It actually went Rock Tomb on me once there, even though it didn't have me in a KO range, which is very interesting. I don't think I've ever seen that from Roxanne before. So here we do set up all the growls, and she's going in a tackle. She still has a couple hardens. She uses the Oran Berry here. We would have to get some critical hits. I don't understand why she went for a Rock Tomb on me though. Usually she only uses that for speed control, they say, but not here. She actually used Rock Tomb on me when it only did 7 damage and I had 13 HP remaining. So maybe her AI like messed up and thought it was gonna get a crit but didn't. I'm honestly not sure how that worked out. I say that just because I have found, of course, that when the AI knows it's going to get a crit, it will go for the move on the basis that it thinks it's going to knock you out, and the AI seems to know when it's going to crit. So it's on that basis that maybe she used it, but maybe there was a glitch in the script where she thought she had the crit but didn't. That is one of the weirdest things that I've seen so far in this series, to be perfectly honest. I'm not sure if I'll ever be able to reproduce that, but I guess she really just doesn't want to lose to Persian. So we're on attempt number 165 here when we finally get back to the Nose Pass, still with the Oran Berry on and 22 HP. This is the best that we're gonna get. I'm gonna go for the growls. We're hoping for no critical hits here, and of course it just crits right immediately and destroys me after I start trying to set up the growls. Are you kidding me? Oh, Roxanne, absolute brutality here. But I think that goes to show just how much luck this actually takes. Like, just to get there and say like I have a legitimate chance in this one took 165 attempts to get to that point. Generally speaking, you're trying to get at most 1 hit from each of the Geodudes to even have a shot, because if you get to the Nose Pass on low health like this, you're simply getting wrecked by a Tackle or Rock Tomb turn 1. So it's that simple. It's 1 hit from each of the Geodudes max, and then pray. And this is one spot where I really do want to kind of complain about Gen 3. Maybe it's just me as a guy with bad eyesight, but it always debates me so bad when I get an opponent down to 1 HP. And to me, the HP bar looks like it has run out, but there's just that itty bitty little sliver of red. But for a guy like me who's got an eye condition, I can't see that sliver of red, so I keep thinking that I've got the win when I don't. And then I get hit again by the opponent. I'm just like, ah, are you kidding me? I wish that they made it like really clear somehow with the HP bar that this Pokemon still has 1 HP remaining, so that you could be like, oh, okay, I actually didn't get the KO. This time we get an amazing attempt at the first Geodude, so we get through on full health. This one might give us a shot at the Nose Pass again, but we're going to need a lot of luck on the second Geodude. We get 1 Rock Tomb here, which is fine, but then we get the second Rock Tomb. We're gonna have to use the Oran Berry, and just like that, to me, my blind guy eye sees that looking like the HP bar has been completely depleted, but in fact the Geodude had 1 HP and hit me me again, which means that we lose this run even after an amazing attempt on the first Geodude. Maybe this is just me complaining about the struggles of being a low vision PokeTuber, but man oh man, Gen 3 just debates me so bad every single time. This time we've got the Nose Pass all the way to 2 HP. I think it's gonna go Rock Tomb to try to knock me out. If we get the Rock Tomb miss, we'll win. If we don't get it, we'll lose. It goes Rock Tomb and hits. Of course, of course. So what I have found on the Nose Pass is that it's best to give it 5 growls and that's it. 5 growls is the best that we can do as far as getting its damage down. And at that point, we just have to go into the bites and pray that we're going to, number 1, not get crit ourselves, and number 2, hopefully get crits against the Nose Pass in all of these turns. And when we get down to about 4 or 5 HP, that's the point where it's going to go for the Rock Tomb to try to knock me out. So we basically have to get like a perfect range to get this one to go. I've been here for quite a while. Yes, we've gotten it down to 1 HP on one attempt. We got it down to 2 HP on another attempt. Yes, it could have missed the Rock Tombs at those points and given me the chance to get the victory, but it's the insane amount of luck that it takes to even get to the Nose Pass with a chance that makes this one basically impossible. And I think I'm gonna have to just call it and give up on this Pokemon. We've been here for half an hour, just grinding away, trying to get this one to work. So I'm gonna give it like 3 more attempts, but if it doesn't go in those 3 attempts, we're just gonna have to call it and say Persian does not get through this gym leader. So unfortunately, Persian, it's going to remain in that fail column. Like I said, it's not impossible to get through with these Pokemon. That's not what I'm saying when I say they fail. I'm saying that it's so incredibly unreasonable to get them through that they don't deserve to progress in the challenge on that basis. I mean, we could sit here and reset infinitely on every single Pokemon, but then I would never get any videos out and we would never progress in the challenge. So we've got to call it somewhere. And here I've given this Pokemon a good couple hundred attempts. Like, come on, that's more than enough to establish that while yes, we've gotten that Nose Pass to 1 HP, 2 HP a couple of times, it's just not happening without God tier luck. Now, if you do this and you get the God tier luck, definitely let me know down below. Post a video of it. I would love to see it. What exactly was the luck that you got? The ones where I've managed to get there, we've seen. Like, I can get through the first Geodude sometimes with no damage. And if I can manage to just get 1 hit only from the second Geodude, I could get to the final Nose Pass with the Oranberry still on even. That happened earlier, and then the Nose Pass crit me, and I couldn't get the win. If we hadn't gotten the crit there, we would have gotten through, and that would have saved me like 20 minutes of time. But unfortunately, it just didn't work out. Persian, unfortunately, Giovanni's cat is out of there. Just get it out of there. But with that, that's going to bring us back to Golem. Now, Golem was coming in here with Rock Throw, Defense Curl, Mud Sport, and Tackle, and I had basically arrived at a situation where I was trying to come in with all the Rock Throws, a few Defense Curls, 1 PP in Mud Sport, and 1 PP in Tackle, just so that I would be able to use the Leppa Berry to try to get back Rock Throws. Let's just see how this goes. Obviously, her Pokemon don't do a lot of damage to us, even with the Rock Tombs, etc. So that's the basis for us trying this again and seeing if we can get the range. We're just gonna have to test this and see. So against the first Geodude, I am going to lead off with Defense Curl because it's going to Rock Tomb me. I just want to take as little damage from that as possible. We're gonna have to test and see exactly how many Defense Curls are actually good here, but I'm gonna set up 3 and now I'm gonna go for the Rock Throws, and I'm basically using this move until I reach the point of getting to the Leppa Berry, because while we're only taking 1 damage per hit now from this Geodude, we of course are in this situation where we are not dealing much damage back to it either. I'm not sure, it might have been better to go for the Rock Throws first until we get it down to doing a very pitiful amount of damage and then go into the Defense Curls on the basis that we should prioritize pure damage output first. I'm honestly not sure. I'm gonna test this again with that setup. That may have been a mistake here. So let's go Rock Throw first, which does pretty significant damage here, and Rock Tomb only does 3 damage to us. So it does appear that we're best off going for the rock throws first, and then as she uses defense curl, we're just gonna have to watch what happens to our damage ranges against the Geodude. I think once we get down to doing like 2 damage per hit, now we should go for our own defense curls just to make sure that she's doing nothing. We might only need 1 defense curl here. I might have come in with too much defense curl PP. Of course, if she crits, it's not going to matter how many defense curls we have. And because we're running Leppa Berry here, we're not going to be able to recover HP at all in this battle. So I'm going to just have to come back and test this again. Let's see this a little bit more. And after testing that quite a bit, it just doesn't seem to work. So the other strategy that we can try is a couple defense curls into struggle here, just to see if maybe that gets us the ranges that we need, and then we can go Oranberry rather than Leppa Berry. So let's just test that and see if it works out or not. So here I'm going to go Oranberry instead of Leppa Berry. I'm going to come in with the rock throws still, but I'm only going to come in with 2 defense curls, no PP and other moves. Let's just see if that allows us to somehow get through this. I think the strategy remains unchanged at the beginning, to go for the rock throws while we can. Now we'll just set up a couple of defense curls to get more defense here and be more survivable. And now I'm just going to spam the rest of my rock throws and then try to struggle against these Pokemon and just see. The problem here seems to be that we're not going to have enough HP to get through everything. So maybe we just completely bypass the rock throws and go straight for the struggle and just do that. So here I'm just going in with a pure struggle strat with the Golem. We can see struggle at the beginning did 7 damage here. Of course, we don't take a ton of damage from the rock throws, so there is an argument for this. The big problem is that we're taking chip damage back every turn, and while we do get through the first Geodude now and level up to level 11, I'm just not sure we have enough HP to outlast her healing. We like when we get critical hits here and things like that that allow us to bypass her defense buffs. But again, we're still taking an awful lot of damage here just from recoil. Still, we do manage to get through that second Geodude and level up to level 12 as we get to the Nose Pass, and we're already slower, so it shouldn't really want to go Rock Tomb against me. It's going to set up here a bunch of turns with the Harden, but we can just see that we're not dealing enough damage with the struggle to actually get through here, especially considering that it has healing. There could be a situation where maybe like 1 defense curl into struggle is best. So I'm going to try that just to see if maybe taking slightly less damage in certain spots allows us to get through. So we'll go 1 defense curl here and then go into the struggles, and just maybe that makes us more survivable against the rock throws, etc. Still, I think we need critical hits to have a reasonable chance here. Otherwise, we're just getting kind of wrecked. It looks like no matter what we do, we pretty much end up using the Oranberry on the second Geodude. But again, if we could get really good luck with critical hits, we might be able to get through in fewer turns and get to the Nose Pass with more health, giving us some sort of chance here. Against the Nose Pass again, though, I think we would really want to get critical hits to bypass its defense buffs to give us a better chance. And unfortunately, we just get knocked out between the recoil and the damage that we took from the opponents. Now, generally, the Nose Pass is going to get a setup hardened before we get to hit any of our struggles, which is why crits here on the Nose Pass are almost certainly required to have any shot. But at this point, we don't have enough HP. Even if we got crits every single turn, we would simply knock ourselves out with recoil. So while this one might theoretically be possible, there might be a perfect range with enough misses from rock tombs and rock throws, etc., and enough crits to get through. Golem still just doesn't seem to get through, at least in my testing. You can come back and tell me in the comments if you think I made a strategy mistake somewhere. The struggle doesn't seem to work. Going for the rock throws with the Leppa Berry doesn't seem to work. Going for rock throw with Oranberry with no PP and anything else so that you can get the struggle doesn't seem to work in my testing. So I'm going to give this Pokemon up right here. So that is going to bring me to Articuno, a Pokemon that of course has an ice type move that can freeze opponents and has the same type attack bonus but is 4 times weak to rock. So it's kind of like that earlier run with the Paris where if we ever get hit, we're dead. But maybe, just maybe with the Powder Snow, we can manage crits and or freezes that allow us to get through this. I'm going to give this a nice strong test to see if we can get it to work or not. So just to review, against the first Geodude, Powder Snow does not get the 1-hit KO, but but it does get the freeze this time, and it will force her to use a potion, so we can knock this one out in 3 hits. That will bring us to the second Geodude. Of course, if we crit a Geodude, we can also get through that Pokemon that way. Here we get the freeze on the second Geodude, but it thaws out, and when it hits the Rock Tomb, we get instantly destroyed by our 4x weakness. I think this one's only worth trying because of the fact that number 1, we could crit in 1-hit KO, and number 2, we could freeze. And if we just get crazy luck on the first 2 Geodudes, we could manage to get to the Nose Pass, and then maybe it's just about getting a freeze to win. The big issue, of course, is the fact that opponents can thaw out on the turn that they managed to get the freeze on them. That obviously wasn't a thing in Gen 1, and I think in Gen 2 maybe they could thaw out turn 1, but it was very unlikely that that would actually work. So you would, generally speaking, get a win on a Pokemon if you managed to get it frozen. Here in Gen 3, I'm not sure if they've changed the mechanics or if it just feels like I'm getting really bad luck with it, but I'm seeing a lot of Geodudes thawing out on turn 1 when I do get the freeze. Of course, we can also get the Rock Tomb miss as a way to get through, and she can sometimes randomly go, I think, for Defense Curl with the 2 Geodudes, giving us a chance here. We're just gonna have to go for that luck to try to get to the Nose Pass at least one time and just see if we can get the luck to get through it or not. It is always worth noting that if she does use potions on the Geodude, she will just get into a healing loop, allowing us to knock those Pokemon out. So we can always take advantage of that if we do manage to get the luck to get a Rock Throw or Rock Tomb miss, for example. So we just have to sit here and kind of reset for that sort of luck to actually come in. This time we get her in the healing loop on the second Geodude, so we're getting our first shot at the Nose Pass. Let's see what we can get here. Of course, if we get Rock Tombed, we simply lose. And we see that our first Powder Snow did 5 damage there, making that an 8-hit KO on the Nose Pass before she uses the Oran Berry. So again, without a freeze on the Nose Pass, we would simply lose there. And at the end of the day, I think this one all comes down to the 4x weakness that we have against the Rock type. If we had just the 2x weakness, we've seen other Water, Ice types, for example, manage to get through here, but also having a Water type move for the Geodudes is just way better because it is 4x super effective. You can basically guarantee the KO there on the first 2 Pokemon, and then it's just about getting the freeze on the Nose Pass, which is, I think, a lot better. Plus, Water is actually super effective against Nose Pass, so once you got the freeze, you could switch to Water Gun or something and have a much better range actually getting through this fight. So I'm basically sitting here running attempts at 10x speed just to see if I can get the crazy luck to maybe get a Nose Pass freeze on one of these, but obviously it just takes an awful lot of luck to get that to go. So we're probably not going to get it. I'm just going to set expectations right here, but if we do, then we probably will have to put this Pokemon still into the struggle column on the basis that even if we did get through, it's so incredibly unreasonable, and we can see that it's unreasonable, that I think it would have to be counted as a struggle Pokemon. Here we are going to get another attempt at the Nose Pass at least though, and we do get the freeze on the Nose Pass and it stays frozen. So now we just need that freeze to last for a very long time. We get her to use the Oran Berry. If we can get some sort of crit or something, we have it down to 6 HP. It's down to 1 HP, and we actually do in fact get the win with Articuno. So it's not great. I don't recommend doing that, but it does turn out that Articuno can get the job done. Now it just probably gets destroyed by Brawly and Watson, but we can officially update one Pokemon out of this set to be in a higher tier and move on in the challenge on the basis of freeze luck. But that was like a critical hit on the first Geodude. I think we got a miss from the second Geodude and then got it in the healing loop and then immediately got the freeze on Nose Pass and it never thawed out. Insane luck. Absolutely insane luck to get that to go. I'm going to put this Pokemon into the struggle column, not into the legit pass column. Take that for what you will. You can debate me in the comments down below, but because it already failed once and these are redos, I think if they pass, I'm going to put them in the struggle column, even though they didn't have to use struggle outside of battle or use up their PP, because this is just insanely luck-based to get through. And I'm doing that because it's actually going to affect some of my calculations later on when I rank these Pokemon, so just take that for what you will. So with that, I'm going to come back to my summary screen just for a second. Articuno moves up into the struggle column. It actually does get a move on. Unfortunately, Paris, Persian, and Golem did not. But as far as our Gen 1 Pokemon redos, that is what we've got. And yeah, our Articuno, it's going to sit up there in that pass with struggle column. Take that for what you will. Debate me. But again, like I said, I just feel like that one's so luck-based that it needs to go into a separate column from the legit passers, and it is going to affect my calculations later on when I rank these ones. I'm using an algorithm to rank these, like when I say algorithm, very simple mathematical calculation in order to rank the different typings at the end of this one. There's a whole like layout that I made that is admittedly something I spent way too much time on, part of why this video took so long, but we're gonna have to just test that and see how it actually works with that one joining the struggle column. I've seen the results before the redos here, so I'm actually interested if that might slightly improve the placement of the ice type at the end. We're just gonna have to see, but for now, let's move on to our next redo Pokemon. Now, I should also note that I marked Furret for redos, but it doesn't make sense to redo that Pokemon. It didn't even beat Hiker Devon, and I think people were actually asking for Linoone to be redone. The problem is Linoone is already up there in the past column as a member pick. I don't think it's worth going back and redoing that Pokemon at this point, so I'm simply going to skip that one, and let's instead move to Slowking, a Pokemon that I know got really close here, and we're just going to have to see if it can manage to get through. The whole issue of Slowking is that it has Curse, so it does have a way to set up and try to get through, but it just wasn't getting the ranges that we got with the Slowbro against Roxanne, and it could have been a matter of luck. It could have just been about misses, crits, etc. So we're going to have to run this one quite a few times to see if maybe, just maybe, it can get through. I'm going to test it and see. So just to review with our Slowking, we're coming in with Curse, Yawn, Tackle, and Growl, and the entire strategy here is to Yawn to put the opponents to sleep and set up Curse, and hopefully get all the curses set up without them setting up too many defense girls, and then maybe being able to get through. Obviously, we want the Oran Berry for healing. We're just going to have to test this quite a few times and see if it works or not. So against the first Geodude, of course, I'm going to Yawn at it first. We get a Rock Tomb miss, that's perfect, and now I'm going to start cursing, and then she shouldn't really want to use Rock Tomb on me too much because of the fact that I'm already going to be slower anyway, and we're just going to try to set up as many curses as we can while the Geodude is asleep. We might need the luck where we don't take any damage from the Geodude before we set up Yawn to get this to work. Here the Geodude finally wakes up and goes Defense Curl. We're going to Yawn at this Pokemon again, and then we're just going to start struggling here and see how much damage we do. Our first struggle did 7 damage here, and remember that we do have the Oran Berry on, and we get a nice crit there, so we knock out the first Geodude with the Oran Berry still on. As we go to the second Geodude, we're already slower, so we get a Rock Throw, but that doesn't do too much. We manage to heal up with the Oran Berry, and we see that we're doing really good damage here with the struggles. So this all comes down, I think, to crits and or just what decisions she makes with her Pokemon. She is going to use 2 potions here, and we get a critical hit Rock Throw. We're going to need better luck than that, but this one still could very legitimately go if we just manage to get the luck. And fortunately, if we do get just 1 Rock Tomb from the first Geodude, it is enough to guarantee we're going to be slower than everything anyway. So honestly, it might be better to go for Curse turn 1, trying to get her to just use Defense Curl with this Pokemon, and then hope that we can manage to knock it out from there. I'm going to try that. I'm going to try Curse turn 1 just to see if maybe, just maybe, we can get a Rock Tomb miss, and then that can allow us to get through here. Of course, it lowers the power of the Rock Tomb as well, so now we can Yawn. She's going to go Defense Curl while we just sit here and keep cursing, because I think the key is just getting through the first Geodude with as much HP as possible. Now, of course, with this setup, we're going to end up doing less damage on each hit to the first Geodude unless we get a crit like that. Still, that brings out the second Geodude, and we immediately take a critical hit from the rock throw and we get knocked out. We're going to need better luck than that. Still, I think I'm trying to set up Curse turn 1 and get a Rock Tomb miss, which is a 20% chance, and then we might have better odds of actually getting through this one. So this time we get that level of luck. We can now yawn on the Geodude. We take a rock throw, which is not ideal, but hopefully we get a nice long sleep then. We managed to set up all the curses. So we're going to have to use our last yawn right here, as it did wake up, so it will get put back to sleep, and now we're back to our struggle. We get a nice crit there that's going to force a potion from her, and now we're just hoping this one stays asleep. It does, so we managed to knock out the first Geodude. Back to the second Geodude. We use the Oranberry right here, and now we're just hoping that she doesn't crit us like she has been doing. We managed to get through. We've got 13 HP for the nose pass. It goes hardened turn 1. We're still doing pretty decent damage here, though. We get a crit that's going to force the Oranberry, but that put us in Rock Tomb range, and she just had just enough HP. Once again, it baited me with the 1 HP remaining, allowing her to survive. If we'd hit one more time and then gotten the crit, we actually would have won that time. So we're just going to have to sit here and reset for this a few times, I think. So it takes quite a few attempts, but we are back to the nose pass with 24 HP this time. Of course, it's going to use Harden. It still has an Oranberry, but we're just hoping that we can manage to deal enough damage here to get through. She also had a potion because I got a really lucky crit on one of the Geodudes. If we crit from this range, we will actually win, and sure enough, we do. It didn't actually take that many attempts to get Slowking through this. I know it says 291 resets, but that's aggregate over everything that I've done so far. The Paris, the Persian, the Golem, and the Articuno. And this one is far less luck-based than the Articuno was. So I think there's a legit argument for putting this Pokemon into the normal pass column. I'm going to put it in the struggle column for this one though, but definitely debate me down in the comments about that. But I think we could actually legitimately consider Slowking as a legit passer because it's far less luck-based to get it through than the previous Articuno was. It's still a Pokemon that probably gets completely wrecked by Watson if we're being honest, but it is another redo Pokemon that does get a progress, so take that for what you will. So that's going to bring us to our next redo Pokemon, which is Mantine. Now, Mantine has the weakness to rock as a flying type, but the advantage of being a water type. Our problem was that we have Bubble and Supersonic effectively as our useful moves here, and we may need Rock Tomb and Rock Throw misses to get this one to work out, and then crazy Confusion luck on the final nose pass. That's the only way I see this working. We're going to have to test this and find out, but let's just see if Mantine can somehow find a way through. So just to review how it was going so far, Bubble, when we use it, is not a one-hit KO on the Geodude. We get a Rock Throw miss here, though, so that is going to put her into the Potion healing loop, allowing us to knock that Pokemon out. So if we get a Rock 2 miss, we will be able to knock out a Geodude. If we get a crit, we'll be able to knock out a Geodude. Those are basically our win conditions against the first two Pokemon. Here, when we get Rock Tombed, we do survive, but we take 22 damage here, forcing us to use the Oranberry. We will still get to the Nose Pass on this attempt. And against Nose Pass, we're slower, but if it has a KO with the Rock Tomb, it's simply going to use it. It goes Harden instead. That's actually an advantage for us here. We get a critical hit, but then we get Rock Tombed the next turn. Now, it can just go Harden randomly every now and then, so it's probably best to go Supersonic on that Pokemon, trying to buy turns. If we can ever get to the Nose Pass on full health, we might even just be able to go for normal attacks there and try to get the victory. We're just going to have to test this a bunch of times to see. Against the first two Geodudes, I think there's no better strategy than hoping for the crit or the Rock Tomb miss though, just because we do need to get her into that healing loop so that we have a reasonable chance of getting through. Because of the way that the ranges work out though, it might be better to have a Quick Claw on and go for the Quick Claw at the end to try to knock out that Nose Pass, or at least get the Nose Pass confused, rather than going for the Oranberry here, because the healing really doesn't do that much for us. The only case where it does do something for us is if we can get to the final Nose Pass not in a KO range, in which case it will go for Harden and Tackle and things like that, but I think that would rely on us getting crits or misses from the first two Geodudes anyway, so at that point the Oranberry just might not actually help us that much. Still, there's a 20% chance on each of the Geodudes for them to miss with the Rock Tomb. So it's about a 4% chance to get the 2 Rock Tomb misses that we would need to get through on full health to that final Nose Pass just by going all in on attack. So I think this is the best strategy that we have available to us. And keep in mind that Geodudes can randomly go for Defense Curl as well. So this time we get to the Nose Pass, but we only took a Rock Throw, not a Rock Tomb. Sometimes she'll do that with the Geodudes. So we're actually still faster here. We can try to go Supersonic. Of course, we miss, and then we simply get knocked out. But that is another possibility. We could get there faster just because of their move choices being to be Rock Throw instead of Rock Tomb for some reason, allowing us to get through and at least have the speed advantage on the final Pokemon that way. So I'm basically going to reset when I get hit by a Rock Tomb, but I'll keep going if I get hit by a Rock Throw. This time the second Geodude goes for a random Defense Curl though, and we got a Rock Tomb miss from the first Geodude. So this is the first time in my resetting here that I've gotten to the Nose Pass on full health. I'm faster. It will go for Rock Tomb against me, but I'm going to try to set up the Supersonic. It misses the first Rock Tomb, and I hit Supersonic after that. It goes Harden. Now we can Bubble on this Pokemon, and we see Bubble does 11 damage here, so Bubble would be a 4-hit KO. We really want the Nose Pass to hit itself in Confusion. It snaps out of Confusion right there, and here we're simply going to get Rock Tombed down. So I see no reason to have the Oranberry, honestly. We need a Quick Claw here if we're going to get through this one on that final Nose Pass, basically hoping for the Quick Claw to activate and to hit the Supersonic there and get enough Confusion luck that we can actually get this to go. So this has to be the strategy with this Pokemon. I see no way that the Oranberry does anything for us since it always just results in us still being in a KO range. This has to be the better strategy for getting through this one. So in this case, I can keep going even if I get a Rock Tomb as long as I manage to get to the final Nose Pass, because we're never going to heal with anything anyway here. At this point, it's all just about luck on that final Pokemon and getting it confused. So here we're getting another run at the Nose Pass on full health. So again, I'm going Supersonic. I want it to hit itself in Confusion. It goes Block, which is actually kind of fine. We don't get a crit this time, so we didn't deal as much damage, but it did hit itself in Confusion that turn. It misses a Rock Tomb. It finally snaps out of Confusion right here, and we're all the way down to 3 HP as she uses the Oranberry. We need a Quick Claw with the Supersonic, otherwise we simply get tackled down from there. Once again, this time we do manage to confuse the Nose Pass, but it simply Rock Tombs me down from there. So we would need like the most insane luck with the Confusion to ever get this one to go. We actually get through the first 2 Geodudes super easily this time, but that means that she still has a potion for this Nose Pass on top of the Oranberry, and she just immediately snaps out of Confusion and knocks me out anyway. This time we do have Nose Pass hitting itself in Confusion at least once. It goes Harden this time for some reason, which is perfectly fine by me. It snaps out of Confusion, but misses the Rock Tomb and has to use the Oranberry. We reconfuse it. I should note though that this time the Nose Pass does have a potion left in reserve, so it was still going to be really hard to get through there. Even if it hit itself in Confusion, we weren't actually going to get that great of a range because we crit one of the Geodudes earlier on. Still, this is literally the best that we can do against this Pokemon, so we just have to hope and pray that we can get the luck. We get Nose Pass to hit itself a few times here and use its Oranberry. It snaps out of Confusion though, and then we lose. Here we get another run at the Nose Pass on full health. It immediately snaps out of Confusion and goes Rock Tomb against me. I miss the Supersonic after that, even with the Quick Claw though, and I simply lose. And while we have gotten runs to that final Nose Pass, it's pretty clear that the Mantine simply doesn't deal enough damage with Bubble. Honestly, just give this Pokemon Water Gun. It is perfectly good to go here, I think, but unfortunately, this just turns out to not be enough, so I'm going to keep Mantine in that fail column because the damage it takes from Rock Tomb is just too much, and it can only take 1 Rock Tomb basically, and then it's just dead right out the gate from there. The Oranberry doesn't help you. Quick Claw is really the only strategy. If you sat here and reset all day, you might be able to get this one to go, but it's just not worth it to sit here all day and reset on this, so I'm gonna have to cut this one off right here. So of course, speaking of water flying types that know the move Water Gun, it's time to come back to Wingull, which has basically the same moveset as Mantine. The only difference is Water Gun, but it has lower stats overall. And we got pretty close with this Pokemon previously, we just couldn't get through. But I'm going to test this and see. This may be one where yet again the Oran Berry doesn't do anything for us. We might need to go Quick Claw here. We might not even survive long enough to use the Quick Claw though because of our low defense. So this may just come down to getting really lucky ranges with the confusion. Let's test this and see. So first things first, against Roxanne's Geodudes, when we use Water Gun, it does not one-hit KO because Wingull is so weak. Still, I think the best strategy is to go for the Water Gun and hope for the Rock to miss or the random defense curl, and then hopefully get her to get into potion ranges and give us the luck to get through that way. I don't think going for the confusion really makes sense in this situation. When we get to the second Geodude, we level up, so we do just legitimately knock that one out. And now we've made it to Nose Pass and we are faster. I'm going to go Supersonic here. We miss. And of course, Rock Tomb ends me. So we're going to have to try this a lot of times, trying to get to the Nose Pass. And then just hoping that we can, at that point, confuse it and somehow outlast it while it uses Oran Berries and potions against us. Because anything else just results in Wingull getting completely wrecked here. It is worth noting we can't even get a one-hit KO range on the first Geodude though. It is just a range there. So we can get to the Nose Pass quite a bit. This time we finally confuse the Nose Pass. It misses a Rock Tomb. Water Gun here does decent damage, about 11 damage there. We get it to hit itself in confusion. If we could crit, we might even be able to win here. We force the Oran Berry, but then she snaps out of confusion. We would have needed a critical hit right there to knock out that Nose Pass, but it still does open up a at least small strategy or small amount of luck that could work to get this Pokemon through. It still requires the Nose Pass to hit itself in confusion a few times, but maybe, just maybe, we can get the lucky crit to get through here. She potions, of course, because she's still got the potions in the bag, and we get Rock Tombed down right there. If we could have gotten one more hit or crit there, again, we probably could have gotten through. So I think resetting for a crit is at least reasonable enough here. Of course, still keeping in mind it requires the supersonic luck on top of that, but for these round twos I will go for a little bit more luck to try to get through. We're just gonna have to see if I can get it in any sort of reasonable number of attempts. Now, just for a test, I went for a Growl here on the Nose Pass. It does allow us to survive with 1 HP from a Rock Tomb, so it might be worth it to go for a single Growl after using the supersonic there. Assuming we can get it confused, then we might be able to get a situation where we can survive one hit just in case it does snap out of confusion. Of course, it adds another turn to our setup here, but I don't know, it might be worth it to just try that and see. This time we're getting crazy luck with the Nose Pass missing the Rock Tomb. Here it does finally hit though, and we can see even after one Growl, it does still get a range to knock me out. So going for the Growl there probably doesn't actually help us that much. If we could ever get it in a range where it wouldn't one-shot me and I'd be able to heal with the Oran Berry and survive another hit, that's the point where it would actually make sense to go for the Growl. Anything less than that, I think we just have to go Supersonic into Water Gun on this one. This time we're getting pretty insane luck on this Nose Pass. It's at 13 HP. If we can get a crit, or if it hits itself in confusion after we hit the Water Gun, we will win. So we just have to test this and see, but I forgot she has potions. Still, she manages to move after we hit her a couple more times, and she gets the Rock Tomb and knocks me out. I've been at this one for quite a while. It doesn't quite work out. I think what this Wingull really does tell us is that if Mantine had access to Water Gun, it would have gotten through, because it could survive one Rock Tomb there, and then, you know, with Quick Claw luck, actually manage to somehow get that to work here. Wingull just still feels like it's a little bit too weak to get the job done. I haven't managed to get the luck to line up, and I've been sitting here resetting for quite a while with this. It says 17 minutes down there that I've been running this Pokemon, but keep in mind, I've been running this mostly at 10x speed, trying to find runs where I get close on the nose pass. And it's only when I get those runs that I actually think I might have a chance where I slow down and start doing commentary again. The rest of the time, I'm literally just sitting here holding an auto fire button on my controller until I get to nose pass, using supersonic, and then just going back to the auto fire on the water gun, hoping to get the crit. So realistically, when you see something like 10 minutes down there in the bottom right hand corner, that literally means that in game time I've been resetting for a couple hours. So just take that for what you will. It's on that basis that I'm just going to keep this Wingull in the fail column. But with that, we're going to come back with another water type that failed. It's Sharpedo. Now, Sharpedo was very interesting here because it knows Bite, which is a same type move, and Focus Energy. Rage and Leer just really don't do that much for us. But maybe with the Bite strats and just enough resets, we can get enough flinches to get through here. So I think this one is worth resetting for. Our defense is terrible. It's basically on par with that Wingull that we were just running. But keep in mind, we don't have any type weaknesses here, so I would expect to be able to survive a Rock Tomb or two. We just have to see if we can manage to get the luck to get through this one with our Bite strats. Let's see. So just to review how we were doing previously, if we go Bite on the first Geodude, we do about half. It's not quite a 2-hit KO. Here, when we do get Rock Tombed, we can see that we took 15 damage from the second Geodude, and we managed to get a 2-hit KO on that Pokemon. It's here on the nose pass that I think we go Focus Energy and then go back into the Bites, hoping to get some critical hits here. We get a crit right there that does pretty decent damage. My overlay's broken because something about Sharpedo's moveset it doesn't like, but here we simply get Rock Tubed down at that point because we actually just don't have enough HP to survive there. It actually looks like we're going to have to take a little more damage from the Geodudes to be able to get to the Oranberry. So this could be another Pokemon that benefits more from like a Quick Claw than an Oranberry here. We're just going to have to test this a little bit more and see. So I am just going to rearrange things a little bit so that Bite is in the top slot. That will help me do my auto fire runs here, so that I can hopefully get more attempts with this Pokemon as I test. This time we managed to get to the nose pass on full health. So once again, I'm going to go for the Focus Energy here, but it critical hits and just one-shots me with the Rock. So I don't know, it might be better to go Focus Energy earlier on in order to try to get a better range against that last Pokemon. I'm honestly not sure. Otherwise, we need like a Rock Tomb miss or something to get that to go. And it turns out I was actually running with the Quick Claw. The overlay is just glitched out a little bit, which is why it didn't show the Quick Claw there. It shows the Oranberry. I'm going to try going back with Oranberry though, just to have that extra survivability here, because maybe that affects the ranges a little bit. I think our main goal is to try to get to the nose pass with good enough health that maybe it decides to go for the hardens against me rather than going for the Rock Tomb. Here we're here on 26 HP. We've actually already used the Oranberry. Like I said, the overlay's kind of glitching out, but I'm going to set up the Focus Energy right here and now go into Bite as it's using Harden, and I'm just hoping that I can get some lucky crit. We get a nice crit there, forcing the Oranberry. This Pokemon does still have a potion in reserve because I only got one of the Geodudes to use it. Now it's trying to go Rock Tomb against me though, and we just didn't quite survive, but if we got one more crit, we would have survived there and gotten through. So I think this is the way to go. We're kind of hoping to take a Rock Tomb from the first Geodude and get in a range where we can use that Oranberry, and it has to be the first Geodude. The second Geodude won't deal enough damage after the level up. So I'm intentionally going to Focus Energy right here, trying to get that Rock Tomb just from this Pokemon so that then I can hopefully knock it out and get through the second Geodude without taking any damage, and then have that chance against the nose pass here with it using things like Block and Harden. Tackle, of course, is also good for us as long as we're not in a Rock Tomb range, but it gets us in that range pretty quickly, so we do need a lot of luck. This time we get her to use both potions before we get to the nose pass, and we took one Rock Tomb but used the Oranberry. So here she just goes Harden enough times, we should be able to get the victory victory here. It's just going to be very, very luck based. She gets a massive tackle on me though, and that results in me getting knocked out. I'm pretty sure that was a crit on the tackle. If not for that, we would have had a chance. So once again, we're just going to have to hope for a lot of luck here on these previous two Pokemon in order to get through. Flinches obviously help. It's just not perfect trying to get this range to get this to go. This time we got here on full health and we just had to use our Oranberry there after the Rock Tomb from the Nose Pass. It went Harden once, now it goes Block. We force the Oranberry, she goes Tackle. We're going to need a Rock Tomb miss here. She Potions instead, of course. We get the nice crit there, we get the Rock Tomb miss, but we would need one more miss to win. She Potions her second time here, of course, and we just simply do not get the luck to get what we actually need. So back to the Nose Pass. This time she has only one potion. She's used the Oranberry. She missed a tackle once, but it turns out that it's not a critical hit tackle. It's just a normal tackle, does about 10 damage and puts us in that KO range from the Rock Tomb. So here we would need a miss plus I think a crit to get through. Of course, she Potions instead because she was on low enough health. So now we would need multiple misses in order to get through this one, and it's just not working out. So I know people have said, like, why didn't you get through with the Sharpedo? And it really comes down to this. It comes down to the fact that we have such low defense that we get completely destroyed in spite of the fact that we have the Stab Bite and it should be doing pretty decent damage. In fact, it is doing decent damage, we can see, and we have the flinch strats. We just often get to that final Nose Pass and don't quite have the ranges that we need to get through it, because the second that it gets us below basically 20 HP, it can just go Rock Tomb and one hit KO me from that range because my defense is so low. And it's partially because this Pokemon is in the slow level up group. If this Pokemon were in medium slow and it was at level 10, I'm willing to bet that we could survive a little bit better here, plus deal more damage and actually get through. But the slow level up group simply does this Pokemon in. So with that, I'm going to leave Sharpedo in the fail column. We're going to move on to Duskull, a Pokemon that was coming in with the Nightshade, but just wasn't quite getting the ranges there, and we needed the Leppa Berry to get it to go. We're going to have to test this one a little more and see how it actually works out. So just to review how we were doing here with Duskull, of course, we come in with Nightshade, Leer, and Disable. When we go Nightshade here, we're going to deal 9 damage because of the fact that we are in the fast level up group. And that means that it's a 4-hit KO on the first Geodude. We can see the Rock Tomb did about 10 damage to me. Now we get Rock Throw. We would need this Geodude to basically decide to go Defense Curl against us if we're going to actually get through it. And Disable doesn't really do anything for us here because of the fact that she has 2 damage dealing moves to use against a ghost with the Geodudes. Both Rock Tomb and Rock Throw can affect us. So the only way that we really get through here is if she decides to not Rock Throw against this Pokemon, because otherwise we're just getting 4-hit KO'd after we use the Oranberry, but still it's just not great. Now after the level up we get to level 10, but this still remains a 4-hit KO on the second Geodude because of the fact that we can't in any way, shape, or form increase our damage output here. We're just 100% stuck with this Nightshade. Now if we can get some luck with some Rock Tomb misses, maybe we can get through, but she seems to Rock Throw a lot of times just before you knock her out of spite or something. I'm honestly not sure. Roxanne just seems to want to get a little bit of get back on you for having a ghost type Pokemon against her. So here when we do get to the Nose Pass, we have the problem that number 1, we're slower, and number 2, we're on low enough health that we can't survive a Rock Tomb anyway, and number 3, we don't have enough PP in the Nightshade to actually knock this Pokemon out, since it would take at least 4 hits plus the Oranberry, meaning 5 hits to knock that Pokemon out, and we don't seem to have enough HP to give the Leppa Berry because of the fact that we just get 3-hit KO'd here. I'm still going to reset for it a few times, but I'm pretty sure that this doesn't work with the Leppa Berry just because we don't have the survivability. The second she goes for a single Rock Throw, we're dead. So here we finally get a run at Nose Pass where we got through with only 1 Rock Tomb and everything else was Defense Curl. Curl, and we've got the Lepa Berry on, so we can actually regain PP to have enough PP to knock this Pokemon out, but at least 2 Rock Tombs will knock us out here. So let's see if we can actually manage to get through this one or not at this point. Here we're going to use our last PP in Nightshade and have to use the Lepa Berry, but now we get Harden, and if we can survive one more turn, it does turn out to be possible to get through with Duskull here. It's just really, really stupid to get it to go. Basically, you need the first Geodude to go Rock Tomb on you, and then for the rest of the time for the 2 Geodudes, for them to only use Defense Curl as you knock them out. It's not impossible, it's just stupid to get it to go. I got it to go one time here, and then you have to have the Lepa Berry on that final Nose Pass with enough HP that it won't just Rock Tomb to knock you out, which is why you can only take the 1 hit before you get to the final Nose Pass. It's stupid, but technically Duskull is going to move on. I'm going to put it once again into that struggle column because it's just ridiculous to actually get this to go, but we are going to let this Pokemon progress because of the fact that it did get that to work eventually. But next up, we have Snorunt, the Pokemon that got all the way to Roxanne and has Double Team on the moveset, but because it's an Ice type that's weak to Rock and is a first stage evolution, it was just getting kind of wrecked here by the Rock Tombs. In theory, we could get a run where we freeze every Pokemon, never get hit, and simply knock them out, but I think this is going to be really, really tough and require a lot of Double Team luck. I think we have to reset for a run where we freeze the first Geodude, and then we're just going to have to try to set up some Double Teams and pray that we can get through after that. This isn't going to be pretty no matter how we do it, but we're going to just have to test it and see if it can possibly work out. So coming here against Roxanne, let's just review what the ranges were like. When we go Powder Snow on the first Geodude, we do about half, and Rock Throw simply 1-hit KOs me. So we can go for a freeze or a Rock Throw miss, but really Double Team turn 1 is probably our best bet to actually survive here at least a turn or 2 so that we can get through this first Pokemon. I'm going to try to set up 2 Double Teams here. This is just never going to be pretty because of the fact that we're trying to rely on an evasion strat to get through this. But because Rock Tomb isn't perfectly accurate, it should miss eventually, giving us the chance to set up even another Double Team and then try to knock this Pokemon out, hoping to get a couple misses in the process. We actually freeze this Geodude this time, only for it to immediately defrost, and then it hits the Rock Tomb after the second Powder Snow because this is gonna be a 3-hit KO on this first Geodude apparently. So just take that for what you will. We're never going to get a great range here. This is entirely gonna come down to just getting really lucky with some Double Teams. Now, the fact is that trying to set up Double Team is the better play than going for the freeze with the Powder Snow. You're more likely not to get hit when you use the Double Team, but eventually we would expect this Geodude to hit us. So after we set up like 4 Double Teams, we should basically just start attacking. But again, when you're a 1-hit KO, you really need crazy luck to get this one to work. So this time we do knock out the first Geodude with a critical hit after getting to +6 in evasion. So the second Geodude comes out, we do less than half, but we freeze it. It's frozen solid. We're going to hit it again. That should force her to start using potions here. We get another nice hit. That's going to force the second potion. So we will get to the Nose Pass with maximum evasion and with no potions left for that Pokemon. But now we have to see if somehow, some way we can actually manage to get the win here. We are faster than the Nose Pass. We could go for Bite to try to flinch here, since Powder Snow and Bite are effectively the same power, and we get hit by a Rock Tomb immediately and die. So yeah, that kind of just tells us how bad this fight is. Get all the Double Teams and still get wrecked by the very first attempt from the Nose Pass to actually hit you. Still, this will technically go eventually just on the basis that we have the evasion set up and we could get a freeze, we could get flinches, etc. at that point. But that's really a whole lot of ifs and eventuallys in that sentence. And that's the case with a lot of these Pokemon that we're retesting today. If I could sit here and just reset with them infinitely, they would all get through eventually. It's just about whether or not it's reasonable enough that I can get it within the time that I'm sitting here resetting, and this one might just be a little too luck-based to get it to go. This time we freeze the Nose Pass, but I didn't set up any evasion before this Pokemon, so I'm going to set it up right now. While the Nose Pass remains frozen, it defrosts. It missed once with the Rock Tomb, which is perfectly fine by me, but now it hits the Rock Tomb and we lose. Back to the Nose Pass again. With all the evasion set up, we get a nice crit turn 1 and a miss. So that's nice, but we really want to freeze here so that maybe, just maybe, we can stand a chance. We do get the Oranberry off of this one. It's still missing the Rock Tombs, but we're just going to need crazy luck here to keep it missing. It looks like 2 more hits. I'm going to try to bite for a flinch. We get the flinch, and we do, in fact, finally win after 40 resets here. It says Hiker Devon, but this is up against Roxanne. I re-went through the game up to this point. We did eventually get Snorunt through, but man, that is brutal to actually get it to go. And it all comes down to the fact that you're just entirely dependent on freeze and double team luck there. There is no way to get through outside of those 2 mechanics. It feels really bad to do, but we technically get it through. I'm still throwing this one into the struggle category. I mentioned that earlier, that I'm doing that with these Pokemon, but this one really, I don't think there's a debate. I think it has to go lower than an actual pass because of the strategies that it's using. We're going to throw it into the struggle column right here. So next up in our redos, we get Huntail. Gorbis got through, and of course, Clamperl got through. Clamperl had a better moveset than this Pokemon, but people were calling for Huntail to get a second shot because of the fact that it has Whirlpool here to start off against the 2 Geodudes, and then when it gets to level 8, it gets Bite, which is technically stronger and might have allowed it to get through the Nose Pass with enough flinches. So we're going to test this a little bit and see if we can find a range that actually gets this one through, but I'm not feeling super confident. I'm just going to be honest. The Whirlpool was really underwhelming here, but who knows? Maybe it works out. Let's test it and find out. So first things first here with the Huntail, we go for Whirlpool on the first Geodude. We can see this is going to be a 3-hit KO as we get hit by the Rock Tomb. Now we get a Defense Curl, and we are going to knock that Pokemon out. We level up to level 8 right here as we get to the second Geodude. Here, Whirlpool is still the best play because it is 4 times super effective. We have to use our Oranberry there after we get hit by a Rock Tomb. We are forcing the potion from these Pokemon, so we will at least get to the Nose Pass. The big problem here against Nose Pass is that we're already slower than this Pokemon, so if we don't get here on amazing health, we're gonna be in bad shape. So we really do need some like Rock Tomb misses or something here in order to get this one to go, because we can see we're taking 11 damage here from the Rock Tombs, so technically we're getting 4-hit KO'd here at best. Really not great. And it's just worth remembering that we don't get to actually being able to use Bite until after we've knocked out this first Geodude because of our erratic level up group. When we get to the second Geodude, here we can Bite for flinches. So we could technically do that instead to try to get through, though Whirlpool is still technically the better move. But of course, once we start getting some Rock Tombs from this Pokemon, then we're no longer faster, and then we simply have nothing better than to go for the inaccurate Whirlpool. So it's just really not a great situation here, no matter how you look at it. We do at least get to the final Nose Pass this time with more HP. I'm still going to Whirlpool first in order to get the chip damage going, and then I'm going to start biting here. Let's just see if we can get the range with this sort of setup. Of course, when it switches into tackle, we're going to be in bad shape, and we just get Rock Tombed down from there. So we really do do need misses and or defense curls from these Geodudes if we're gonna get through them. Ideally, we would love a run where we get like critical hits, etc., that allow us to get to the final nose pass still with our Oranberry on. That would be the most amazing run. Like in that case, I'd feel pretty good about getting through. We get another attempt at nose pass here at least, so we can hit the Whirlpool first and start biting here, hoping to deal more damage since bite is technically stronger here. Once again, we force the Oranberry, but she's got us in Rock Tomb range. She misses Rock Tomb there, but now she hits and we simply lose. Basically, once we're down around like 10 HP, she's just gonna Rock Tomb and knock this Pokemon out. So I don't think anything short of like critical hits is going to get us through in this one. And I think the big kicker is the fact that Whirlpool is less accurate than the Rock Tomb that we're up against. So it's more likely that we miss the Geodudes here, for example, than that we get the Geodudes to miss us. It's still technically possible for us to get a bunch of Rock Tomb misses and get through, but it's really just not super likely that that's going to actually work out. And it becomes far more likely that we're going to miss at some point and get completely wrecked. And honestly, this makes me think I need to do like Gen 2 and do a run with these only wrapping type moves, like I did with the Wrap God Dragonite, using only Whirlpool, Fire Spin, because Fire Spin was available in the later gen for that Pokemon, and then Bind and Wrap to play the entire run. You know, sounds really legit to me. For now, we do get a run where we get to the final nose pass with the Oranberry still on. So I'm still going to Whirlpool first. Let's get that chip damage going, and then let's start biting this Pokemon, but know that we've got the Oranberry, so we're going to be able to get some HP back. We're taking about 6 damage per hit from the tackle, and here we can see we're down to 12 HP, and it's starting to try to go for the Rock Tomb against me, and the nose pass still has 11 HP. I'm pretty sure this is a 2-hit KO from this range, and we're slower, so we would need like 2 Rock Tomb misses in a row here. We don't get it, so we lose. And with that, I think we can call this. The fact is that basically, even when we get to the nose pass with the Oranberry still on, we're still getting wrecked by the fact that we don't have enough defense to survive against the tackles, and we get basically KO'd from the Rock Tomb when we're still on pretty reasonably high health, and none of our moves deal that much damage. Like, we were dealing all the chip damage with the Whirlpools there. We were using Bite, which is technically the stronger move. It just doesn't deal enough damage there, and there's no way to prevent damage from the opponent other than just praying that they miss a bunch of times. I'm not saying it can't happen, because sure, Rock Tomb, Rock Throw, and Tackle all have a chance to miss. There is some mythical infinite reset range where you can actually get through this fight with no damage taken at all, but it's not practical or realistic within like a human sitting and resetting for it. So it's on that basis that we're going to leave Huntail in the fail column. It just doesn't really have anything that helps it well enough to actually get through this fight. So just like that, we're going to get to our final redo Pokemon for this, which is Shelgon. I decided to do this one in particular because it is a dragon type with pretty decent defense, and it knows Bite, which has a reasonable chance to get a flinch on the opponent. We didn't manage to get that level of luck while we were testing previously, but it is at least, I think, worth trying a little bit more to see if we can manage to get through with some crazy flinch strats. What holds this Pokemon back is what holds most of these Pokemon back, being not in the medium slow or fluctuating level up groups, which allow them to get a couple extra levels here and be significantly stronger against Roxanne. We're still here one level higher than Huntail, so I guess we should consider ourselves lucky for that, but we're just gonna have to sit here and reset and see if Bite can deal enough damage to eventually get us through this with some flinch luck. We're gonna just sit here and test it to see. So just to recap how this Pokemon was doing, when we went Bite here on the Geodude, it doesn't do do a lot because we're not getting a same type attack bonus or anything in this move. So it's basically a 4-hitter here as we did 8 damage. In fact, a 5-hitter if that 8 damage per hit holds up. And then she's got the potions on this Pokemon. So we would need crazy amounts of flinches, and we see that the first Rock Tomb did 10 damage to us, and we take 2 Rock Tombs to be slower than the Geodude so that we'll stop Rock Tombing against us. And that just basically puts us in that position where yes, we can get through that Pokemon, but we don't have our Oranberry on anymore. The next Geodude will be a simple 4-hit KO, but once again, she's going to use a potion here and we simply get wrecked. So we will need crazy amounts of flinch luck to get this one to go. I will be sitting here using speed up. We actually get through the first Geodude with no damage on the next attempt due to flinches. This time we're just getting crazy flinches. We do get a Rock Tomb here, but then we get a critical hit. We force the second potion from the second Geodude and we do knock it out. So we're at least getting to the Nose Pass with 21 HP remaining. Nose Pass goes Harden. We can see that we did 4 damage here. So this is a 10-hit KO with the bite, assuming no crits. And we can see once again, we're taking about 6 damage per hit from the tackle, and then Rock Tomb just completely ends me. So this one is going to require basically that kind of luck that we saw in that first Geodude of like never getting hit by either of the Geodudes, getting to the Nose Pass at least with the Oranberry on so that we have a chance to maybe get through that one with the 10 hits that it's going to take. But that's asking an awful lot of luck in this one. We're just going to have to see if we can get it to go. I'm just going to sit here and spam at 10x speed to see, but I'm not feeling super confident that we're going to get this one through. So here we're once again to the Nose Pass. We've taken 95 resets so far. We've never had a run where it looked like we were close to getting through though. She once again gets us to 10 HP and simply Rock Tombs us down from there. It's fairly rare to even get to the Nose Pass, and then even when you do, you're generally getting completely wrecked because you almost always have to use your Oranberry before there. I haven't gotten a run, at least personally, where I got to the Nose Pass with the Oranberry still on, and it's at least on that basis that this Pokemon seems to have to stay in the fail column. It just doesn't get enough flinches. People pointed out that Dragonair has an even lower flinch chance with its moveset than this Shelgon because Twister is only like 10% to flinch if I recall correctly. So basically these mid-stage dragon types simply do not get through. In spite of the fact that they don't have any type weaknesses, it just doesn't work out in the end. So at the end of the day, we're going to fail Shelgon here. It is out of there. And with that, we've completed all of the Pokemon that I marked to do redos. Tell me in the comments if you think I missed anything, but we're going to be moving on to Watson in the next episode. But before we do that, let's get the last 5 member picks done, and then we will do our final section wrap up with just some stats at the end and the type ranking so that we can break it down. What is the best and worst and everything in between type in order to go up against Roxanne? So first up, we've got brand new Patreon member Adria Martinez coming in with Jolteon, and a very special Jolteon. We've got Thunderbolt, Iron Tail, Shadow Ball, and Curse on the moveset. Obviously, Thunderbolt's going to be our main play until we get to Hiker Devon, but at that point, we're going to then try to use the Iron Tail, Shadow Ball, maybe a little bit of Curse action to progress in the game. We're just going to have to see how it goes because this is a brand new ROM that I had to build up for the member pick so that we could have the nice shiny Jolteon here. We will be running again from the beginning of the game, but nothing will be worth talking about until we get to Roxanne herself because this moveset's clearly getting through everything up to that point. So let's just see how Adria Martinez actually does once we actually get to Roxanne herself. Now, of course, I've saved all of these member picks for the end so that we can end on a nice high note in this section, actually with just a bunch of Pokemon that do in fact get through Roxanne because she has been so brutal up to this section of the game. I'm just saying right now, tell me what percentage of Pokemon do you think passed this section without going back and looking? Like, don't go back and count and like run calculations, just in the top of your head. What percentage of Pokemon do you think actually passed through Roxanne? And how many Pokemon do you think we're going to continue running as we progress in this challenge? Considering that there are channel member picks and things like that as well, I'll be interested to hear if it's more or less than what you thought when we actually look at the statistics at the end. And also, while you're down there, just pregame, tell me what you think the rankings of the different typings will be at the end. Now, I should say, I'm not sure, it might be Adria Martinez. I'm not sure the exact pronunciation of the name, but Adria, however you prefer it pronounced, definitely let me know in the comments or send me a DM. But for now, you've made it to Roxanne with your Jolteon. We're going to throw on that Oranberry and see if we can get this to go with the curse strats plus the Iron Tails. I think it makes the most sense. It's the two moves that will synergize together. Maybe we go for Thunderbolt on that final nose pass, but I think by then the Iron Tail will just be stronger. Let's see how this actually works out. So here, Roxanne attempt number 1. We're going straight for Curse. We're going to take a Rock Tomb turn 1 that does 10 damage to us, but we're just going to Curse again and get Rock Tombed again, apparently. We're going to have to use the Oranberry right here. We get a Rock Throw. This Geodude really wants to damage this poor Jolteon, but I'm just going to get all the curses set up. I think this is the way to go so that we just have the maximum damage potential as we go forward and take the least amount of damage possible from our opponents. Now we can go for Iron Tail. It's going to 2-hit KO here on this Geodude just because of the fact that we are so incredibly slow and it set up some defense curls already. We level up right there though. We get to the second Geodude. We take a Rock Throw, but we 1-hit KO that Pokemon. We level up here as we get to the final Nose Pass. We only have 6 HP. It goes Hardened though. We miss the Iron Tail. Now it misses Rock Tomb. This is going to be a 2-hit KO after the Oranberry. We get Block, and just like that, we get the victory on the first attempt with the Jolteon. So Jolteon, once you give it the Curse, and Iron Tail is perfectly fine to get through this section. We're going to have the Shadow Ball Curse strategies in the next section, as well as Thunderbolt for things just in general. It probably is going to work out, but we're going to have to hope that the Curse builds up our damage enough to get through that Magneton on Watson's team. Maybe the Thunderbolts are enough to just simply get us through Brawly's team. I'm honestly not sure, but we'll test it out when we get there. For now, I just want to give a massive thank you to Adria Martinez for supporting, joining the Patreon membership, and crushing Roxanne's defenses with this Jolteon. I hope that other people will pick up the other evolutions, because it honestly doesn't feel good to move on without evolutions, but Jolteon was always my personal favorite evolution, so I gotta give a massive thank you to you, Adria, for supporting this Pokemon and getting it through this section. Once again, tell me the proper pronunciation of your name so that I don't mess it up. But with that, we can now move on to the next of our member picks. It's time to allow Dragonair to get a little bit of get back. So here we will pick up our beautiful shiny Dragonair right here, coming in with Dragon Rage, Flamethrower, Ice Beam, and Thunderbolt, being supported by 17 Master, who is joined both on Patreon and as a channel member here on YouTube. The double up is massively appreciated, and we know with the Dragon Rage, we're going to just basically crush everything because we have a guaranteed 40 fixed damage. So I'm going to pick this one up right when we get to Roxanne, and we're going to show that if dragon types had actually been given, you know, a decent dragon type move, they would have completely crushed the early game at least. I'm not sure if this Pokemon's ever going to hit a wall later on, but obviously for anything here in the early game, the strategy is just as simple as spam Dragon Rage and win. It will be very interesting to see where the Dragon Rage strats stop working though. Like, what point do we get to where it's more than like a 2 or 3 hit KO KO and we can't actually survive enough turns to use Dragon Rage. For now though, let's just make our way straight to the gym leader and take her down with this one. So this time as we come into Roxanne's gym for 17 Master, I don't think we even need to throw on any held items. Like, why would we? We've got the Dragon Rage Dragonair. Let's get into this and see how this goes. Of course, Roxanne leads off with her first Geodude, but it has less than 40 HP, so it gets one hit KO'd by the Dragon Rage as we get to level 9. Second Geodude comes out, we Dragon Rage and just easily knock it out, and that brings out the Nose Pass, which conveniently only has 37 HP, so we just go Dragon Rage and we win. So it turns out that 17 Master is far too powerful. I mean, also supporting my Milotic, so basically the two prettiest serpentine Pokemon in the entire game. At least I think I can say that without making too many people angry out there. And yeah, turns out that these serpents, when they actually get decent moves for Roxanne, are completely OP. Of course, Milotic did legitimately get through this gym with his moveset. 17 Master is supporting Milotic more for the Watson section that is coming up. But for this Dragonair, you got to think that it's going to resist the electric type moves. It's got enough type coverage. When it gets to the Magneton, it's going to be able to use Flamethrower. It could go for freeze strats. It could just deal decent damage with the Dragon Rage. I think it's got decent chances of getting through. We'll just have to see how it actually works out though. That will all be for the next section. For now, 17 Master, let me give you a massive thank you for the double up, double crushing Roxanne's defenses here with your Milotic and with your Dragonair. You're moving on, and I'm excited to see how your Pokemon go. But with that, it is time for the KakeKing, who previously had Latios as his member pick, but there were two people who chose Latios. I had promised it to two people at the same time. The KakeKing said, hey, I don't want to double up. Can I change? Absolutely. We are changing now to Raikou so that we can properly run his Ryuji for Ryuji Sakamoto using the electric type moves with one of the best electric type Pokemon. And we're coming in with a very kind of interesting starting moveset. We've got Bite, Reflect, and Curse at the start, and I've added on Body Slam. The idea here is pretty simple. I wanted to have a physical move that would work together with the Curse. Reflect will aid in reducing damage quite a bit. Bite will just allow us to deal some pretty decent damage against Roxanne's team. We're going to have to see how it actually works out. We're not actually starting with any electric type moves, but that's perfectly fine. We'll get there eventually. Obviously, in the next section, if we really need to, we can get to the game corner and get access to Thunderbolt, which I think will make this Pokemon pretty strong, but we wouldn't really want to learn any electric type moves for Watson anyway. We're probably fine with this setup as we are. We know we're gonna get to Roxanne with this Pokemon. We just have to see how we actually do when we get there. So let's jump ahead to that and just see how it actually goes. Now, I should note that the KakeKing basically said, throw on the fourth move, whatever you want, but something normal, maybe like return. I decided to go Body Slam instead because it is legal on this Pokemon, number one, and number two, because it gives us a paralysis strat. And it just feels right to me for an electric type Pokemon to at least have a chance to paralyze the opponent. So I decided for the Body Slam. That was definitely my logic, plus the fact that we'll be able to use it together with the Curse, giving us a move that can actually benefit from the attack boost. I felt made this Pokemon better, but we'll just have to see how it actually goes. If this move doesn't work out, I may swap the Body Slam for something else, but I think between Curse and Reflect, we're going to be able to get this one to go. Now, of course, Raikou got pretty close to getting through previously. It wasn't close enough that I thought it merited like a redo at this point, but it was outperforming a lot of other Pokemon in that legendary episode last time because it was at least not weak to the rock type, and it had the neutrally effective move and Bite with a decent special attack stat. Here, I think we're going to be able to get this to go on the basis that we will be able to set up Reflect immediately to effectively double our defense as long as the Reflect stays on the field, and then we can set up Curses to become even more defensive after that. So I think this is going to be a pretty easy way to set up, and then hopefully we're just survivable enough we can hit enough times to knock our opponent opponents out, but let's see how this actually works out. So here, I'm actually going to lead off with Reflect turn 1, since that has the highest impact on our defense right away, and then I'm going to start cursing, and I'm going to just make sure to set up lots of curse at the beginning so that we can tank as many hits as possible, and if our Reflect wears off, we will set up a new Reflect. Here, with all of the Reflect set up, we can now go into Bite. It's going to be like a 3-hit KO on this first Geodude. I did not put on the Oranberry, massive mistake, but because we're already so slow, it's not like we're going to get too many Rock Tombs, so we managed to get to the final Nose Pass with 10 HP remaining. Bite doesn't do that much here, so I am going to set up a new Reflect just to be even more defensive here and just keep biting as it used the Oranberry. We go down on that attempt, but honestly, I think that was just because of my mistake not putting on the Oranberry. So let's try this again with Ryuji here. So this time we get to the Nose Pass with 23 HP remaining. I'm going to set up Reflect again right here and now just start biting and just hope I can win the damage race. We get a nice crit there. We force the Oranberry. We're getting tackled, but it is not enough. When you actually put on the Oranberry, you win that fight pretty easily with this Raikou. It's just a matter of being able to survive enough turns, and Reflect and Curse do the job. You're not even using the Curse for damage output, just for damage reduction, and it works out perfectly fine when you've got the bite strats. So with that, I just want to give a massive thank you to TheKakeKing, because you're a double supporter between Patreon and the YouTube channel memberships. I cannot thank you enough. We had to double up on the cake for that one. And you are moving on both with your Flaffy and with your Raikou into the next section, assuming that they can get through Brawly and Watson. I mean, they don't really have weaknesses to deal with for a while. And given that there are a lot of water types in this generation, I mean, electric types could turn out to be pretty good in the late game. We're just gonna have to see if they get there. But for now, I can't thank you enough for your support. Thanks for being so gracious as we've been kind of going back and forth about the member picks here. I'm glad I can finally get you a Pokemon that is your own and that you're really excited about with this Raikou. So let's keep it going as far as we possibly can. But now, sticking on the theme of Gen 2 legendaries, we've got Heiknbacon coming in with Crystal, the Suicune. That means that at least at this point of the legendary beasts of Johto, it's only going to be Entei that is completely getting wrecked here. And of course, Ho-Oh is still out there as well. I think people are just fearful about the fire types not being able to get through. But I'm sure if you gave them the right moves, we could find a way through this section of the game. And I actually think the fire type would do pretty well for a while. It would be kind of interesting to see how far fire types could get if they could just get through Roxanne. We may test that separately in some solo runs, but for now, let's get our Suicune and just see how it actually goes here. Now, our Suicune is coming in with a moveset of Water Pulse, Calm Mind, Rest, and Bite. A moveset that I think absolutely guarantees victory here because, I mean, the Calm Mind plus Water Pulse has to be completely OP against Roxanne herself. But even when we get through Roxanne, I mean, the Calm Mind will allow us to raise both our special attack and special defense. So we should do better against electric types as long as we can set up that move. Maybe against Watts' Electrike, we can set it up. Then we also get access to some confusion strats here. So, I mean, there's a lot going for us as we try to get through this section of the game. If we get to Flannery, we would expect a strong water type to do well there. So, I mean, there's got to be some chances for this Pokemon to go really far if it can just get through Roxanne. The problem was that it only had Bite. It didn't have access to a water type move. And that has been basically my biggest shock in this entire challenge. The fact that we haven't gotten water type moves on so many water types, which has resulted in a lot of water type Pokemon getting wrecked, in spite of the fact that on paper, they should be really good against Roxanne. And after we defeat Devon, I'm so confident with Crystal here that I'm simply going to go straight into Roxanne's gym. No need to heal, no need to do anything else. Heiknbacon's far too powerful for that. Let's get into this Roxanne fight with our Suicune and see if we just just get the immediate, super easy victory. So Roxanne attempt number 1, first Geodude, we go Water Pulse, and that is a one-hit KO on that Pokemon. We get to level 9 as the second Geodude comes out. We can go Water Pulse once again, one-hit KOing it. That brings out the Nose Pass. We are faster. We can go Water Pulse, doing about half. It misses a Rock Tomb. We go Water Pulse. It survives. It hits the Rock Tomb this time. It's going to Oranberry against us, and she's going to Potion, but now we get the confusion on the Nose Pass. It hits itself, and we simply knock it out from there before she can use the second potion and get to level 10. Suicune with Water Pulse is way too powerful for this gym. And with that out of the way, let me just give the massive thank you shout out to Heiken for supporting Crystal the Suicune here, getting it through Roxanne and getting a little get back for these water types, because man oh man, they got wrecked in this section of the game by Game Freak's moveset decisions. But we finally get one of the coolest water type Pokemon through this section, moving on, and we're at least going to have a chance against Watson. I think we're going to have to really learn how his AI works and where we can set up the Calm Minds effectively. But once we get it, we may be able to just sweep through the team and survive hits in the right spots. So I think we're going to be able to find ways through with this Suicune, but let's find out in the next section. But that brings us to channel member Dead Rise for No One supporting Agent Kecleon. We're calling it Agent Leon here, but Agent Kecleon here, the Pokemon that almost got through. It just didn't quite manage with its normal moveset, but I think we're going to have enough advantages here to finally get the victory that we wanted against Roxanne. Let's see what the starting moveset is. Here, Kecleon is coming in with Skill Swap, Shadow Ball, Brick Break, and Body Slam. Now, for a lot of this section, I think Brick Break is going to be our primary move. Skill Swap could be interesting in some situations. I'm not sure if it has any major usefulness here. For now, I think Color Change is just fine. If we get the right moves, we will become resistant to certain moves. Of course, it doesn't help us at all against Roxanne, though. So we'll just have to see how that actually works out as we go through this. In standard situations, when we're normal type, Body Slam is our strongest move, so we should use that, unless it happens to be that something else is super effective. But Body Slam does allow us to get paralysis, so that could also help us get through these sections. We'll just have to see how this Pokemon goes as it goes forward. We do have a really massive move pool, so we have lots of options as we move on through the challenge. We just have to see which ones actually turn out to work for us. So here, as we get our Agent Leon to Roxanne, the real question is just how survivable are we in this fight? I'm definitely putting on that Oranberry just in case. Let's see how this actually works out. So Roxanne attempt number 1 right here. I'm going to lead off with Brick Break against the first Geodude. We see it does over half. We get Rock Tomb right here. That's going to turn us into a rock type Pokemon. We don't quite manage to get the KO in 2 hits on the Geodude because of Defense Curl, but we do take it out in 4 hits there. I did not recover PP coming into this fight though, so that could be a problem for us. Here, once again, we do about half to the next Geodude. We use our Oranberry right here, and once again, she is going for the potion, but we will be able to knock this one out. We take another Rock Throw, so that's kind of bad as we get to the final Nose Pass. We could level up and learn Fury Swipes here. Of course, we'll skip that move. That brings us to the Nose Pass. I only have 3 Brick Breaks left, but we are a rock type Pokemon, so we're not going to take too much damage until we get Tackle and get turned back into a normal type. Still, we've got it on very low health. I'm gonna go for the Shadow Ball right here, and that is enough because it missed the Rock Tomb to allow me to get the victory and get to level 13. So it's not the prettiest range, but it does ultimately work out. Brick Break is a lot stronger than the Feint Attack we were using previously. So with that, we're able to move on in the game with our Kecleon. So with that, let me just give a massive thank you to Dead Rise for No One for supporting Agent Kecleon, getting through this section and finally managing to get through Roxanne and move on into the next part of the game. It's actually a really big deal that another normal type has actually managed to get through, because as we're about to see, the normal type really didn't do very well in this section. But before we move on to our summary, we got to get one more Pokemon in. That is Armaldo, which is being supported by channel member Luxe, who's also supporting over on Patreon. Another double supporter. I cannot thank you enough for that, Luxe. And we are coming in with Godot, named after the character from Ace Attorney, apparently, and running with this Armaldo. Now, Armaldo joins Pokemon like Milotic, Sableye, and Kabutops that legitimately got through the Roxanne section, but are still being supported by channel members on the basis that maybe they think this Pokemon's gonna fail later on in the challenge and they want to get ahead by giving it some special moves. So I figured we should see what a powered up version of this Pokemon actually looks like. Of course, the battle armor ability is really cool because of the fact that it does allow this Pokemon, in theory, to get through some really tough fights just by the virtue of not being able to be hit by critical hits. But we're also giving this one a much stronger moveset. We've got Hidden Power, we've got Earthquake, we've got Swords Dance and Surf. The Hidden Power is set to be Hidden Power Bug here, but really we can just Swords Dance and then destroy pretty much anything as we go through this one. And Hidden Power Bug is pretty good for us. It will allow us to cover some types with our Swords Dance setup, which could really help. We should be able to deal pretty decent damage with that, but here I think Swords Dance, Earthquake, and Surf are going to be the moves that get the most play in this section of the game as we try to take down Roxanne. Still, we already know this Pokemon got through with its normal moveset, so of course it's going to get through when it's powered up like this. So we just need to get straight to the gym leader herself and see how easy this turns out to be. And here, as we get to Roxanne, there is one major difference between this version of Armaldo and the one that actually beat Roxanne legitimately, which is that we didn't get access to the move Harden. Harden was a major factor in that previous one because it did allow us to boost our defense and become more survivable. I'm pretty sure that Surf with 4x super effectiveness will just destroy the two Geodudes though, meaning that only the Nose Pass is any sort of threat to us. And even then, we might be able to go into the Swords Dance plus Earthquake and get through that way. We'll just have to see. Let's test this and find out. So Roxanne attempt number 1 right here. I'm going to go Surf and just see how this does on these Pokemon. It's 4x super effective. I mean, you know, if this Pokemon normally knows a water type move, it just kind of makes sense. And for some reason, she sends out the Nose Pass second. Don't understand that entirely, but hey, we'll take it. We'll just spam Surf since she's gone Harden a bunch of times. She goes for both potions on the Nose Pass, and we simply knock that Pokemon out, and that brings out the final Geodude, which gets just one shot by the Surf. Never stood a chance. And now I think I should quickly note, I know somebody's going to comment down below, wait a second, Armaldo doesn't learn Surf, but when you consider that it does learn Water Gun and Water Pulse, and in later gens it will learn things like Aqua Tail and Liquidation, I mean, it kind of makes sense for this Pokemon to get a strong water type move. If we had just gone Water Pulse here, it probably would have gotten the job done too, frankly, given the ranges that we just saw. So I think we would have been fine with that as well. So just take that for what you will. Luke's just particularly asked for Surf because you can only encounter Anorith by surfing, and I think he said Gen 6. So why wouldn't the Pokemon be able to learn the move? That was the logic and argument. And of course, Swords Dance is an egg move, allowing this Pokemon to get access to that, and the other moves are legitimate. So just take that for what you will as we go through this. I've been pretty flexible about the moveset rules when it comes to member picks, because it's honestly just my way of saying thank you to members of the community for supporting me. I have a long-term goal of eventually reaching the point where I can support myself just off of memberships and direct support by doing fun things like this for the community rather than having to have YouTube ads or sponsors or anything like that. So just take that for what you will. That's my long-term, like, someday goal. We'll see if I ever get there, but for now, it's people like Luke's who help me get closer to that. So I can't thank you enough, Luke's. Let me pop that thank you up here on the overlay. And Armaldo is moving on to the next section where I think the Earthquake's going to be perfectly fine for the Watson section. Like, if Earthquake doesn't get you through Watson, I don't know what does. And I think we've got enough moves for everything else on the way. We'll have to see if it actually works out. But for now, you're moving on, and we'll check in next time, next episode on the Watson section. But now with all that done, it's time to look at the final statistics, and I spent way too much time putting this all together. In the end, we get 123 Pokemon to pass through Roxanne, 25 Pokemon struggled, 241 Pokemon failed. So at the end of the day, out of 389 Pokemon, that translates to 32% pass, 6% struggle, and 62% fail. That includes the results from today, and 44 of those failed Pokemon were saved by channel members. It should also be noted how the members are being handled here. Milotic, Kabutops, and Sableye are treated as passes. I should note that the Armaldo that we just did is also in the pass column because they legitimately got through Roxanne without the support of extra moves from channel members. They're mostly being supported for future sections of the game, whereas all of the other Pokemon that are in the member picks are included in that fail category. So we've inflated the pass column a little bit with some of those member picks, but at the end of the day, 11% of Pokemon were supported by channel members by the end of this section. Because pass, struggle, and member picks will move on, putting those numbers together, that means we will still have 49% of the Pokemon getting through Roxanne and moving to the next section. Just keeping in mind that about a quarter of those are going to be member pick Pokemon with stronger moves. The legit contenders still moving on is 38%. Now, looking at the weakest Pokemon that managed to get through, I think there's a few patterns that are pretty obvious. Grass, water, and fighting type Pokemon managing to get through, but there are some kind of surprises, with Togepi being the weakest Pokemon that doesn't have a type advantage actually managing to get through Roxanne. Smeargle, of course, after it sketched the water gun, was able to get through, but you still had to sketch Harden as well to get that to work. And then Kirlia was the weakest psychic type Pokemon that managed to get through. You'll note that all of those Pokemon that I just mentioned, as well as the Hoppip and the Sunkern that are up there, were in the struggle column though. They were Pokemon that couldn't actually legitimately beat Roxanne on minimum battles. They had to somehow use up PP against wild Pokemon to get through an opponent, get to struggle at some point in the run, or in the case of that Smeargle, it had to go up against a wild Pokemon in order to sketch a move that it could actually use in battle, and that move happened to be Water Gun. That was the best move you could get for this section of the game. I'm honestly not sure if Smeargle's gonna make it much further. Same for Togepi, that felt pretty lucky, though it was using the Metrodome strats. The grass types might be able to continue though, just because they do have the resistance to electric type in the next section. We'll really just have to see how that works out. Of course, if those are the 10 weakest, we should look at the 10 strongest Pokemon that failed in this section as well, and immediately be greeted by a ton of legendary and pseudo-legendary Pokemon. Now, it should be noted that there are quite a few legendaries that failed that got picked up by channel members. Of course, we're looking at Pokemon like that Suicune and Raikou today. Lugia got picked up by a channel member. Dragonite was picked up by a channel member. So we've got some pretty strong Pokemon that technically failed, but are progressing just because they're in that member pick section down at the bottom. That's why I decided to throw the member picks into this part, just to make that clear. I mean, Rayquaza, Latios, pretty strong Pokemon, but they do not move on in this section of the game. But as far as the Pokemon that haven't been saved, that are fairly strong but didn't progress, we've got Ho-Oh, we've got Salamence, we've got all of the forms of Deoxys. I decided to put them in one card just to keep from cluttering up the whole layout here. Zapdos, Moltres, Entei, the Regis, and then Gyarados rounds out the top 10 of the Pokemon that didn't manage to get through in spite of having amazing base stats. And I think the fact that Gyarados is down there at number 10 is the most depressing one, because it is a water type. If they had just given it a water type move, it would have gotten through this section. The rest of these I think were pretty obvious based on their move pools. Though the Deoxys, I was also kind of disappointed that Pokemon is, you know, such a special Pokemon for this generation, with its 4 different forms all failing. Kind of insane, to be perfectly honest. Still, if you're thinking about joining a channel membership and you want to get a really strong Pokemon that might have a chance to go really far in the challenge, well, there you go. There are 10 options sitting right there for you as we move on in this one. But now it's time for my favorite part, which is to actually rank all of the different typings. And I've talked about rankings a lot on my channels because I disagree with the way that most people do tier lists. What I dislike with tier lists is when people base a tier list just on their opinion of something, and then it's just basically a waste of everybody's time. So instead, we are going to rank the types based on a very simple mathematical formula. We are going to take the average performance of each typing, where a pass is worth 1 point, a struggle is worth half a point, fails are worth 0 points, and then we divide that by the number of Pokemon of that typing to get a weighted average. Then what we do is we take all the weighted averages of all the different typings and we take the average of those. And if you're 50% above the average, you're going S tier. You're completely like a amazing typing. And then we are assigning the tiers based on how much of a percentage deviation there is from the mean average of all the types put together. That means that if there is a super high outlier, of course, it's going to be way up above everything else, whereas super low liars are going to pull down that average and kind of balance everything out. So we'll be doing the S, A, B, C, D, and Bruno tiers, and it's time to find out how these different types actually rank at the end. And we're just gonna have a podium of the top 3, but you know, take that for what you will. Let's get into this. Coming in at the very bottom, I think many people could have predicted this. It was the normal type. Of all the normal types, only one of them actually managed to get through legitimately. That was Clefable. We had 2 Pokemon that were in the struggle column in this category. We just saw them as part of the weakest Pokemon to pass. Those were Smeargle and Togepi. Every other normal type failed. And that is, out of 62 Pokemon, you have 1 passer and 2 struggle Pokemon. That is just getting absolutely wrecked. Keep in mind that those member picks showing down below are included in the fail category here because they didn't get through Roxanne on minimum battles with their legit movesets. And that drags this typing down to have a very dismal percentage. It gets 2 points. You divide the 2 by 62. So just a terrible average. That puts them 17th place, all the way down in the Bruno tier. With that, we can get our next typing, which also was pretty bad, the bug typing. The difference is that bug type has 2 Pokemon that legitimately got through in Armaldo and Parasect. Yes, we have Armaldo as a member pick, but it did legitimately manage to get through Roxanne because it had Water Gun and Harden. And of course, Parasect is a grass type as well as being a bug type and managed to get the job done, though Paris couldn't quite survive to get the win. It's very important to note that dual type Pokemon are being counted in both of their type categories here, so the numbers won't quite add up. But if you were doing like a randomizer or a Nuzlocke based on a particular typing, I do think that this is useful information. And if anything, the grass type pulled this typing up a little bit. It's still better than the normal type at the end of the day because 2 Pokemon get through, getting it 2 points, but there are only 36 bug type Pokemon. So 2 over 36 is better than 2 over 62, but it's still going to be Bruno tier no matter how you look at it. We're going to throw bug type down in 16th place. Up next, we have the electric type. Electric type is very similar to the bug type. Only 2 Pokemon managed to get through. Those were the Electrode, which was using Sonic Boom, and the Lantern, which also happens to be a water type. Every other electric type Pokemon got completely wrecked here. I think we could have predicted that, but as a percentage of all electric types, 2 over 21 is better than the 2 over 36 or the 2 over 62. So electric type goes higher than those other typings, even though technically the score calculated on pass and struggles is the same. It's just a higher percentage of electric types getting through. Yet again, helped a little bit by the water type type here, but still electric type is down there in 15th place. Moving on to 14th place, we get the fire type. The fire type is the first type to legitimately have 3 Pokemon get through this section with Blaziken, Torkoal, and Camerupt, though none of the others could even get through in the struggle column, and 2 of those Pokemon were at least supported by having a secondary typing that made them neutrally affected by rock type moves. Still, fire type is one of the most popular typings for support from the channel members, with 9 Pokemon in this category, and there's still Ho-Oh sitting out there as well as Moltres if people want to support a really strong fire type Pokemon, and Entei while we're at it. So just take that for what you will, but still, that's 3 Pokemon passing out of 28, putting the fire type down in the 14th place. Still Bruno tier, by the way. None of these typings so far have managed to crack out of the Bruno tier. Up next, we get the flying type, and flying type is always really weird to put on this sort of tier list because flying is never a monotyping in these early generations, so it's always going to be dependent on its secondary typing, how it actually performs in different situations. You will either get wrecked because you have a bad secondary typing, or you'll perform really well because you have a good secondary typing, except maybe against the fighting gym. I think everywhere else the flying type is kind of neutral or a disadvantage for you. But here we can see yet again that the secondary typings had a massive impact. Looking at the past Pokemon, we get things like Tropius, Pelipper, and Skiploom. And in the struggle column, we got today's edition of Articuno. Technically didn't struggle, but it was a Pokemon that only passed on redos, and the Hoppip, which did have to struggle to get through this section, but those 2 together do effectively add 1 more point. So that gives the flying type 4 points over 50 Pokemon, which gives it a better average than the other types below it, but still really not great. We can see a lot of really strong flying types that got completely wrecked, including the flying dragon types. And at the end of the day, not looking great for the flying type. It stays down there in the Bruno tier. But now that we've finished the bottom 5, it's time for the number 12 typing here, which is, of course, the ghost type. Now, ghost is very interesting because there are only 10 ghost types in the game, and at the end of the day, we got through with Dusclops and Sableye legitimately, and we got Duskull through on redos. So Duskull joins as a struggle Pokemon, even though it technically didn't struggle. Yet again, I'm just counting the redo Pokemon in that struggle category to not inflate the scores of these types too much. But at the end of the day, that is 3 out of the 10 Pokemon moving on, giving this a 25% win rate effectively. Still, I thought the Ghost type would do a lot better than this. I was thinking that things like Sleep Strats, Nightshade, etc. would get the job done, but often it turned out to not be quite good enough against Roxanne, and these Pokemon tend to be physically frail, so when they get hit by things like Rock Tomb, they just get completely wrecked, and turns out they can't actually progress through Roxanne very well. Still, this is our first D tier typing because of the fact that 25% did manage to technically get through. Moving on to the next typing that will stay in that D tier, we have the Dragon type. Here we got 3 Pokemon legitimately through with Kingdra, Flygon, and Vibrava. Of course, Trapinch is not a Dragon type. That's why it's not in this category. And then we had Latias as a struggle Pokemon. This is another one where, yet again, there aren't that many Pokemon to rank. Only 14 total Pokemon have the Dragon typing. So when you take 3.5 over 14, yet again, you get that 25%, but you've got more Pokemon in that pass column, which is why this one will go slightly above the Ghost type, but effectively they're the same in terms of their percentage of Pokemon getting through this section, at least by my method of counting. So on that basis, you could flip these around if you really wanted to. Still, Dragon type is in 11th place. That brings us to the top 10 finally, and coming in 10th place and moving up into the C tier, we get the Steel type. Steel type, yet again, very underrepresented with only 15 Pokemon, but we come out with 6 of them actually managing to get through this section. That includes the Metagross and the Steelix, but the entire Aaron line also managed to get through. So this is our first typing where there's more Pokemon than can fit on my little card here, which is why I only did 3. In this case, whenever there's 3 Pokemon showing there, I'm showing the strongest Pokemon, the weakest Pokemon, and just a middling Pokemon from the pack that managed to get through. In this case, Metagross was the strongest Steel type and Aaron was the weakest Steel type that managed to get through this section. Still, we lost things like Registeel. We lost, obviously, the unevolved forms of the Metagross line. We also lost like Mawile here. So not a great typing at the end of the day, but hey, we did manage to at least get some Pokemon through. Sticking in the C tier for the next one, of course, we get the Poison type, which was kind of surprising to me. Out of 42 Pokemon, 17 Pokemon with the Poison type managed to get through. Now, of course, this is being pulled up a little bit by the fact that there are so many grass poison Pokemon. We can see it there with the Venusaur and the Bellsprout in the pass section, but there were a couple of legit passers that were just pure poison types when we look at Arbok and Muk. So we have to give a little respect to the poison type. They also got helped out by the fact that the Gulpin and Swalot line managed to also get Bullet Seed so they could get through Roxanne with a super effective move. This is definitely a typing that's pulled up a little bit by the benefits of getting the grass types that got that Bullet Seed though. So we should definitely look at these results as being a little bit suspect, but at the end of the day, if you're just saying, does it have poison type on it, you got 17 of those Pokemon through out of 42. We're nearing 50% getting through, but this is still only going to be a C tier placement. Up next though, we have a typing that technically performed better than that, the Psychic type. Here, the Psychic type of course had tons of past Pokemon, but also the most struggle Pokemon of any typing. So we ended up with, out of 48 Pokemon, 25 of them getting through, over half, whether it was through legit passes or struggles. This is a case where the fact that I'm counting struggle as only half a point is pulling this typing down quite a bit, but I think it's fair because of the fact that often they get completely walled by youngster Calvin and have to go use up their PP against wild Pokemon. Even a Pokemon as strong as Mewtwo gets stuck in that situation. That simply makes me think that it's legit to say that these Pokemon aren't great, but they're also not terrible to get through. And at the end of the day, if you get a Pokemon with a Psychic type, it's pretty much a coin flip whether you can manage to get through Roxanne on minimum battles or not. You might just have to manipulate a little bit around that youngster Calvin fight, but you can eventually get them to go through everything else. And we should keep in mind that this typing is pulled down a little bit by things like Wynot and Spoink and the 4 Deoxyses, since they're all 4 being counted here that didn't manage to get through. So technically you could say Psychic is a little bit better than this, but this is what I'm going to go with for my results. Up next, coming in at number 7, we get the Rock type. Interestingly enough, it's kind of surprising to me that Rock type didn't do better in this section, but of course Rock doesn't resist Rock. So at the end of the day, out of 30 Pokemon, we had 12 that legitimately passed and 1 that passed with struggle. Now, a lot of people were calling on me to redo the Relicanth and see if it can get through without struggle, but I don't think that would really affect the results here too much. And at the end of the day, it's just completely hit and miss of whether you have some secondary typing or move that allows you to get through Roxanne, or do you not have that typing or move and get completely wrecked. So pure rock types like Regirock and Nosepass, of course, got completely destroyed here. And the ones that do get through are things like Tyranitar, things like Lunatone and Solrock managed to get through. Of course, the entire Aron line also has the steel typing, so they managed to get through with the 4 times resistance. But we didn't really see the rock ground type getting through, which was kind of surprising to me. I expected those Pokemon to do better than this, but at the end of the day, they just didn't really perform that well because they didn't have good moves to use against Roxanne. So at the end of the day, it's a very middling typing. The reason it goes higher than something like the Psychic type is because a higher percentage passed here, even though they didn't have as many struggle Pokemon actually managed to get through. But now we can move on to the number 6 typing, which was the Dark type. Out of 16 Pokemon, 7 legitimately passed. There were no struggles, but it's nearly 50% getting through without having to go for struggle strats, which is pretty darn good at the end of the day. We got through with, of course, things like Tyranitar, Crawdaunt, and the Shiftry line though. So yet again, outside of things like Tyranitar, we're talking about Pokemon that have a good secondary typing that gets them through, whereas things like Umbreon, Murkrow, and the unevolved forms like Poochyena did not manage to get through this section. They just simply got wrecked. Of course, Houndoom is a member pick down there, but of course with the Dark Fire type, it also got completely destroyed by Roxanne. Still, it's good enough to earn the Dark type the number 6 placement on my tier list, and now we're ready to get into our top 5. Coming in at number 5 is the Ground type. Out of 37 Ground type Pokemon, 19 legitimately managed to get through, and we had a couple of struggle Pokemon of this typing as well with that Wooper and that Baltoy. We still had a decent percentage of the Ground type Pokemon fail though, with Donphan, Numel, and Swinub over there, but as I mentioned, a lot of the Rock Ground type also failed. Things like Sandslash failed to get through this section, so it was really hit and miss. It depended on whether or not you had a secondary typing that was good against Roxanne, or you got really good ground type moves here. Still, it turned out to be enough to get a decent percentage of this typing through, but when you say 50% and you're supposed to be super effective against the gym leader, it does feel kind of bad, I'm not gonna lie. Still, this is good enough to get B tier at the end of the day for our ground types. After that, at number 4, we get the Water type. Yet again, a typing that dramatically underperformed what I would have expected just based on type effectiveness, and especially because Rock types typically don't have good special defense. But at the end of the day, so many Water types do not get Water type moves, getting them completely destroyed. So we managed to get through with Pokemon like that Kyogre over there, Whiscash, Lotad were perfectly fine. Of course, the Lotad line also had the Grass type to help it. And then we struggled with things like Slowbro, Corphish, and Wooper. But what was really shocking to me was just how many strong water types completely failed here. Things like Gyarados, the Suicune, and the Tentacruel that are showing down below in that member pick section. And of course, Magikarp and Feebas are just kind of being run as memes at this point. Take them for what you will, but still not a great showing at the end of the day for a typing that should have been amazing against Roxanne. So they're stuck in the B tier, not gonna crack A tier with the water types. You are really still kind of flipping a coin whether you're gonna get through Roxanne or not if you just pick a random water type out of a bag. That brings us to the number 3 spot though, and this will be the first typing that gets the A tier. It is the Ice type. The Ice type is helped along by the fact that there aren't that many ice types to begin with, only 16 of them, and 9 of those Pokemon legitimately passed, and then we have 2 in the struggle column that were saved today. They're just retry Pokemon that managed to get through. They feel really bad to get through, but they're possible. But we do have to yet again recognize that the ice type is somewhat pulled up by the water type, but funny enough ranks ahead of the water type because of the fact that ice, I mean, it does give you the chance to freeze in a lot of situations, and freeze strats are still kind of OP as long as you can manage to get the luck. So while yes, we're seeing a lot of water ice types over there in that pass column, at the end of the day, double team with Powder Snow was enough for Snorunt and Glalie, and it was enough just to get freezes with the Articuno with enough attempts to actually get that Pokemon through, earning the ice type the number 3 spot and getting it the first A tier, in spite of the fact that ice is weak to rock. back, funny enough. I would not have predicted that coming in, but it does kind of make sense at the end of the day, just because freeze strats are that broken. But now we're down to the top 2, and I think it's pretty obvious how they're gonna go. Coming in at number 2, we have in the A tier, the fighting type. Fighting types performed very well against Roxanne overall because number 1, they resist Roxanne's attacks. Number 2, they have super effective moves of their own. It was still kind of interesting to see how this worked out. Blaziken got through in spite of the fact that it didn't have a fighting type move, but was able to use focus energy and burn strats to get through. But the rest of these Pokemon were basically getting through on the basis of having a fighting type move. Pokemon like Hitmonlee and the Machop, as well as that Makuhita there in the struggle column. I was surprised yet again about how many fighting types did not get a fighting type move though. Things like Heracross, Mankey just being a little bit under leveled by the time it got to Roxanne. It couldn't get to low kick in time, hold that one down. Still, we're talking about 12 out of 18 Pokemon legitimately passing and another Pokemon in the struggle column, meaning this typing gets about 2/3 through, which is pretty darn good at the end of the day. Still, in the end, it only qualifies as A tier, ranking in the number 2 spot, and that means that for the S tier, we have, of course, the grass type. Grass type was the one typing that was completely OP when it came to getting through Roxanne, with only one grass type failing, and that was Paris. We had 2 grass types that needed to struggle early on, but then were able to manage to get through in Hoppip and Sunkern. Every other grass type legitimately passes this section, and we should keep in mind that even when we were running Unknown, it was Hidden Power Grass that got through. Now, the reason for this, I think, is obvious. The existence of the Bullet Seed TM. Bullet Seed is the solution to Roxanne, and it's just insane to me that they put a super effective TM before the first gym leader to help out the Trico line, when if anything, I feel like they should have put a move in order to help the Torchic line, because that line gets completely wrecked. But no, they were like, hey, grass is super effective against all of Roxanne's team. Let's just give a TM for all the grass types to manage to get through. At the end of the day, it does manage to get a lot of Pokemon through though. Grass, out of 41 Pokemon, gets 38 legit passers and 2 struggle Pokemon, making it completely god tier in this section of the game, earning the only S tier finish for this one. And with that, that is the end of the Roxanne Minimum Battle series. We are going to be moving on to Watson next. You can see all of the results right there. The green bars represent pass. The orange bars represent struggle. The red bar represents fail. And the gold bars that are coming in at the very right side just represent member pick saves. We can see some types just overwhelmingly are more preferred for member picks at this point. For some reason, fire, electric, and dragon types are getting a lot of love from the members, but there are quite a few other types out there that could use a little bit more love. Look at that bug type, look at that normal type. But at the end of the day, that is my ranking. Do you disagree with this? Do you think Psychic should be lower because of the fact that it has so many struggle Pokemon? Maybe it deserves to be put down below things like poison and steel. I'll let you guys debate that down below, but for me, this is the final ranking that I made based on my simple calculation of the weighted average of passes, struggles, and fails. And I think at the end of the day that it's a pretty fair representation of how Pokemon actually did in this section. But with that, that's gonna do it for this one. I will see you guys in the next one. We'll just keep gathering the stats as we go through this, and we may be updating these rankings quite a bit in the next section, but I'm actually pretty confident that the fighting and grass types are gonna stay up there near the top as we go through Watson. I don't see a lot of chances for a lot of these other typings to overtake them at this point, but we'll just have to see when we actually get there. For now, that does it for this one. I will see you guys in the next one. Later.